I think a lot of people think about wanting to do it. Maybe you're working a 9 to 5 job and you like dream of this life and you yearn for it, but then years go by and you don't do anything about it.
When you go through this life, it's a world that's ever trying to change you.
Imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't afraid to fail.
But I would say focus on progress, not perfection.
You don't need to know every step of the way of how you're going to get there. You're going to get there.
Now that's a success story.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Success Stories. I'm Steve Cross, the host, and today we have a very special guest, somebody I've been following for quite a long time, Bernard Huang, the founder at Clearscope, clearscope.io. Bernard, thanks for being on. Appreciate you.
Steve, it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of a podcast, yours specifically, since we go way back, and especially one called Success Stories, because sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Well, it's a grind, man, right? It's always a grind. That's success. It's not a destination. It's a journey.
It is.
So that in mind, when you think back of your success story, and I know you're going to deflect a little bit and say, well, I don't know if I'm successful or blah, 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 and give me the humble answer. But when you think back of your success story, give me, what's that point where it begins? When you start to think and to tell that story, are you going back to childhood? Are you going back to, your adolescent years? Where at college, maybe your first leap into entrepreneurship? Where's that begin for you?
Yeah. I'll say the most critical breakpoint that comes to my mind is in college. So just to give everyone listening a bit of a backdrop, I come from an Asian American household. My parents immigrated from Taiwan to the States, and the way that they were able to achieve their success was being top of class, right? Best university in Taiwan, to PhD in the States, to, having nice, well-paying jobs. And so that was always the insistence that my parents put on both my brother and I. Fast forward to college, I'm studying electrical engineering at the University of Texas at Austin, and I am hating it. To be fair,
Yeah.
I've hated it since like middle school and high school, and it just never made any sense to me, this whole school thing. But college is where you have freedom, and so that's where you can hate on it and then be like, you know what, like I'm not gonna do anything school related. And so I got sucked into online poker. This is, 2007 was my freshman year at UT, and Chris Moneymaker wins the World Series of Poker
Yeah.
in 2004 and kicks off this whole like, wow, online poker, you can go from rags to riches, Chris Moneymaker can do it, so can you. And so big boom, lots of people depositing, and I kid you not, this is how I got started. I bought one of my friends some Chipotle, and then instead of Venmoing, I don't think there was Venmo back then, PayPaling me or something like $8. He's like, why don't I just like transfer this to you on Poker Stars? And I was like, whoa, man, like Poker Stars? Like, what is this? And so I take this $8 and then I proceed to lose it. And then I get hooked. I'm like, all right, I got to figure out this whole like poker thing. And so, yeah, college, figured out a lot of poker. You get into the mathematics of it all and probabilities, and, you're tracking hands, you're studying hand histories. And I remember I've made about $50,000 like midway through college, and my grades are complete ass, right? It's like a 2.2 like GPA. I've been withholding it from my parents. They're always like, "Oh, like how's school?" I'm like, "It's good." And then they're like, "Well, can I see a report card?" I'm like, "No, no, you can't." And then at some point they're like, "Okay, wait, like what's going on here?" And then they see my like 2.2, and they're like, "Dude, like, what are you doing?" And then, I come clean, and like this is the abridged version. I'm like an emotional wreck. I think they're going to like disown me. But I come clean. I'm like, yeah, I've been playing online poker. And then their first thing is like, is this a scam? Like, can you show us like some actual dollars? And I'm like, yeah, here's like a secret bank account that like has tens of thousands of dollars in it. And they're like, okay, all right, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to play online poker. and there's nothing you can do about it because this is what I need to do. And then they're like, fine, but just finish college, don't drop out, because I told them I was going to drop out. Anyways, that was the first big moment because it took me from this place where, I was living my life to what my parents wanted or to what society wanted.
Yeah.
And this was the first stand that I took to say, you know what, like, this is what I want. And I'm willing to, sacrifice a lot to pursue, what it is that I want. And yeah, that worked out decently. I made like $120,000 in college, and then I ended up buying a Dickey's barbecue franchise with some friends using some of the proceeds. So that was the most memorable moment.
Wow. So was that a conscious, had it been in the back of your mind? That's not like your entrepreneurial jump, but that was kind of your jump of paving your own way, right? Getting off the course of somebody else's direction for you. Had that been in the back of the mind? Is that something that you had been thinking about, or is just like, nope, online poker got me. I made a right-hand turn.
No, this like need, this whole of wanting to do my own thing, it just started really quite young, like earlier manifestations were like, starting a breakdance club or starting a school club or, making like my own board game, right? Those were like earlier iterations. And then, each time you do it, you're like, okay, but wait, where's the money? Like, where's the money? And then at some point, it finally hits you and you're like, oh, wow, okay, like what I need to be doing is things that make some money.
Right? Yeah. Real life hits you, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, okay, I've been thinking about this all wrong. It's not just do things that I want to do that are fun. It's do things that, like are things that the world values.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we do things that are fun that we get paid for, right? That's
Of
the
course.
goal. That's the goal.
The dream.
Yeah. So after you kind of jumped into that franchise, kind of take me through, how you move forward in your professional career. I saw you had some jobs along the way, right? But then you kind of jumped, or you started an agency, and then you jumped into Clearscope. What was that? How'd that journey pan out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the one commonality that brings it all together for me is honestly excitement and kind of choosing like my own path. But yeah, so online poker in college, bought a Dickey's barbecue. That went out of business in 13 months because running a business, especially a barbecue business, is really hard.
Yeah,
Brick
you
and
didn't
mortar.
pick an easy place to start.
No. We did not.
Yeah.
But yeah, brick and mortar margins are very razor thin. It's ride or die, 5 to 20%. And barbecue is not just, you have a bag of frozen fries, throw it in the fryer. It's like the brisket's got to be smoked, the chicken's got to be moist. There's a lot of room or error. So it was hard to make it work, and we ended up selling the business for zero to transfer, the liabilities, the lease requirements, the franchise fees, that kind of stuff to another owner. But it was good. I consider that like MBA tuition type stuff. Like, standard operating procedures weren't really, anything we were thinking about.
Yeah.
And so, we would fail fire inspection. We would fail this or that because there was just no checklist. I know the franchises are supposed to give it to you, but I think I was just like, this binder, who cares about this binder?
Yeah. That legal conversation meeting I was supposed to be in, who needs that?
Yeah, who needs that?
Right?
I'm 21, what do I know? So anyways, I'm like, okay, brick and mortar, even if I did know what was going on, razor thin margins, now we're seeing the rise of mobile come on, 2010, 2011. And so a couple of friends and I get into a startup accelerator. It's in Providence, Rhode Island. It's called Beta Spring. They give us roughly, $70,000 of like seed funding. Mind you, this is 2010, and seed funding back then, like the YC initial check was $20,000. So everyone was trying to like copy that, and $20,000 was standard. Although I feel like $20,000 now is like
Yeah.
stupid for a seed
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah, it's just a lead into debt.
Yeah,
Right.
that's like one like Anthropic API like month.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, we work on stuff for a couple of years, doesn't work out, and then I moved back to Austin to work on another startup. The stuff in Rhode Island, it was mobile apps. We're working on something called Mobile Secretary, which honestly is like close to what Siri like should be or ought to be, and was never, because well, that kind of stuff's really hard. But that's what we were working on. And then moved
And you-
back to Austin.
So you physically went to Rhode Island.
Yeah.
To the incubator. Yeah, gotcha.
That's right. Yeah, through the incubator, they gave us money, runway. We tried for a couple of years, and I think the idea that you needed to make money was still like somewhat of a foreign concept, right? You kind of see all these Instagrams, these YouTubes, these Snapchats, and you're like, oh my God, you just need users and a boatload of funding. Except then when you're like in the trenches, you're like, well, actually getting something viral and getting a crap ton of users is phenomenally hard. It's actually a lot easier to go to like 10 businesses and convince 2 of them to like buy, your $300 a month software.
I
But
bet.
anyways,
I bet.
I didn't know that at the time. So yeah, then moved back to Austin, worked on a marketplace for home baked goods. So anyways, I had helped a food influencer, food blogger friend of mine build like a website for her to sell some of her like baked goods. Turns out, some laws were passed to make it legal for home bakers to sell commercially as long as they, met certain state requirements. These are called the cottage food laws. And so I was like, oh, there's a great, marketplace type idea. Worked on that for 9 months, tried to get into like Techstars, YC, same, didn't get into anywhere, ran out of money, like $0 in the bank account. And then I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. So I should go to San Francisco and join a Y Combinator startup. And maybe they know what they are doing. And so this is now 2013, moved to downtown San Francisco, join a YAC startup called 42 Floors. And, their premise was commercial real estate, Zillow, but for commercial real estate. And so that was the next step in my career.
What was that a big leap for you doing to kind of confident?
Leap.
I was going to say because it sounds like the rest of your story is confidence led. Like I can figure this out. I know what I'm doing. And was that a mind reset of like, shit, maybe I don't, like how did that land? How'd that go for you?
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, like when you start your entrepreneurial journey, it's usually full of optimism and excitement and gusto. And, by the 2013 time, I went from the high highs of feeling like a hotshot playing, high stakes, no limit poker to, like applying for jobs. And my technical co-founder like immediately gets a job offer at, some company, because everyone at the time was hiring software engineers. And I'm stuck as the non-technical guy, just like pounding the emails and trying to get a job anywhere. And, this is, I guess 2013 is not terrible, but yeah, just not being snatched up as quickly as, the technical folk.
Yeah.
So it was a reset. It was a humbling moment. It was my declaration to say, I don't know what I'm doing. And those YC people, they seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah,
so
they might have something going over there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's excellent. So in that, so the 42 floors, then what made you jump back out? What made you go back out on your own again?
I mean, honestly, working at 42 Floors was great. Like, I do think, if you're thinking about an entrepreneurship journey for yourself, like, depends on if you're technical or non-technical, but
Mhm.
I do think that if you're technical, like spending some time in a hub, whether it's Silicon Valley, New York City, Boston, depending on what trade you want to be a part of, really opens up your network. And the thing about Silicon Valley that's magical, at least back then, and still probably now, is just that everyone's hustling, right? And so it's very easy to get a coffee with anybody, really.
Yeah.
Like, people are either 1 or 2 like degrees away, and there's a culture of just accepting coffees, and like, because you never know, like, when somebody comes to you and they're like, oh, I want to pitch you an idea, like, maybe you can be an angel investor, maybe you can introduce them to some investors. Like, there's always like some, like, elbow grease that can get passed around, and it does. Yeah, I mean, 42 Floors was great. They hired me as a growth hacker and gave me, like, a corporate credit card and said, go figure out this growth thing. And I freaking loved it.
Did you?
Like, I
Were you
ran,
scared?
I was scared for sure, but I also was like, up for the challenge. And so, I mean, this is 2013, 2014. I'm like buying upvotes on Quora. I'm buying like, fake
Yeah.
Reddit accounts. I'm creating, these Reddit like karma like stuff to like upvote on, my own posts, and being like blocked here or there, but finding ways across the system. I'm dabbling in the dark arts of SEO. I'm learning SEO and also dabbling in the dark arts of
Dark arts. I
SEO.
love that. I love it.
So, private blog networks, I'm like buying links. I have content farms like spinning. I'm like building my own private blog network like on the side. And then Google slaps us with, a manual web spam action because they notice unnatural linking, which causes, our website to be de-indexed.
Oh.
And keep in mind, this is like a $60 million like funded company. And it's like the investors like, we can't find you on Google anymore. And then, the CEO's like, Bernard, like, what the hell did you do, man? And then, and I was just like, well, I was gaming the system. And then my manager, like, stepped in and was like, this is what we need to be doing. Like, if we're not pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable and breaking things, like, we're not pushing hard enough. And like, that was the culture. Right.
Wow.
And so I like was applauded for like getting our website de-indexed, because it was clearly working phenomenally until the Google caught on and said, well, you can't do that.
Well, that's pretty amazing. A manager stepped up and had your back like that, because and I guess it kind of I'm not a California guy, Silicon Valley guy, but is that kind of the culture of, hey, I got your back, you're with me? Did you expect that?
It's the culture of meritocracy. I can't even pronounce it, but yeah, it's a culture of like, it. If you get results, it doesn't matter. Like, that's Silicon Valley. That's why they're rule breakers, right? Like,
Yeah.
Uber and Airbnb and all that. They just broke all the rules, and then they got away with it because they won. So, it's kind of very Machiavellian in that sense, right? It's just like, if the ends justify the means, like, you just do whatever it takes. And that's at least the culture that I lived and breathed in Silicon Valley. So yeah, it got my confidence back up. It like kind of allowed me to go, you know what? I'm not a complete, failure in just being like trying to chase after and do things to like the best of my ability. And so after a year and a half, I went there to learn. And I learned, and I was like, it's time to step back out and do it again. So yeah, started a variety of projects. Like, it was sort of like let's build a new project once every like 1 to 2 months, and then just see like how it goes. And then in the side, I was doing consulting with my business partner, because we were now like in the YC network, and we were known to be like kind of the SEO like gurus of like Silicon Valley. And so, we did Strava's SEO, we did DoorDash's SEO, we did All Trails' SEO, and we were managing all of these like big SEO brands at scale. And it just compounded our learning even faster
Yeah,
because
for
we could
sure.
then say to like DoorDash team, like, oh, like, make sure every category page, right? Like pizza delivery in, Austin has a photo, at least on the front page of, each of the different listings. And you try that and you'd be like, oh, wow, like, we see a 20% lift in search traffic. So, photos on directory pages like do well. I mean, now it's all sort of common sense, but it's just
Yeah,
like
back then it wasn't.
anything that like increases user engagement signal is good.
Yeah.
Anything that decreases user engagement signal is bad. That was basically it. And so
Yeah.
different verticals needed different criteria to increase
Mm,
user engagement signal, right? If you had a piece of content, it wasn't, oh, just add photos to it. It was like, how do you make this credible and trusted? How does like the author bio look and feel, right? And if it was a directory site, well, it depended on what the directory was selling, right? If it was food delivery, yeah, pictures of food are going to make people convert better than not,
yeah.
right? And so that was learned really quickly when working across, 5 to 10 like big brands.
Yeah, that availability to test that wide, that volume, right?
Hmm.
Because if you're on a narrow path and you don't have that width to test,
Yeah,
you can't
exactly.
exponential
Yeah,
learning. Yeah.
it was exponential, and like the cool thing was we got paid to learn on behalf of
Yeah,
everybody,
even
right?
better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, when you get into consulting, it's it's something that I also think all non-technical people should try because it's like the most basic form of entrepreneurship is selling yourself and selling your services and then, being able to negotiate for what you're worth and to scope projects and create deliverables. It's challenging, but it is like you're basically learning all the fundamentals of non-technical like business
Yeah.
when you do it.
So where do you think this your need or want to not just do the 9 to 5 for somebody else, because you said yourself, like, you kind of had that job for a year and a half, right? And you're like, no, I'm going to do it for myself again. What, where's that? Is that inherent? Did somebody guide you? You have a mentor, family?
No,
No, you
no.
just balls to the wall. I'm going to figure this out. And I think I have the
Yeah.
confidence to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I like look at what my parents did, and I think that even though what it looks like to me is like not that risky, I actually think it was like really risky, right? They like took a leap, moved to like the
Yeah.
States and don't know like the culture or the language and then like made it work, right? And they were like the only ones from both sides of families at their like age to like emigrate to the
Hmm.
States. And so I do feel like there is some aspect of like risk in the family, although just manifested in different ways. And then my grandfather, I suppose, was also an entrepreneur. He bought and sold like materials
Hmm.
essentially for trade. Um, so I don't know, probably pretty inherent. And I just get restless.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like working on something and it's not like that engaging, my mind just starts to like run amok and it's just like, oh, but like, well, is there opportunity in automating some of this? Is there opportunity adjacent to this? Are we even doing this like right? How big is like the market? I don't know. I just start thinking about that,
Always
and then
obsessing.
and then I'm like, okay, well, I should do something about it.
Yeah. You're always looking for opportunity. And I think that's probably goes back to the cards, the poker, because you always have
Cards,
to look at the angles. You always have to look at the opportunity, when to
the
move back,
expected value.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
what, with, is Clearscope kind of the only thing you're working on right now, or you have other things going on?
Yeah, Clearscope's the main golden goose, if you will.
Yeah.
So consulting, doing all these business contracts was never our thing. We always wanted a product. That's why we were building a product 1 to 2 months. Clearscope came out of one of those experiments with
Mm.
clients where we, at the time, this is now 2015, 2016, we tested entities, which is just a fancy way to say, okay, if you're writing about credit cards, does it matter if you talk about Visa? And that was, again, like 10 years ago at this point. But back then, people were not thinking about that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I
They're
know.
like, okay, if you want to rank for credit cards, have credit cards in the title tag, have credit cards in the meta description, build as many links, and make the page load as quickly as possible. And you will probably rank for credit cards. That was the going thought back then. And we were like, no, like, well, what if the page doesn't say MasterCard or American Express or, Chase Sapphire? And we were like, that doesn't matter. And like, well, no, we should test it. And so we started testing the inclusion of similar entities within blocks of content. And we saw a like 134% increase in traffic over a 1 to 2 months period. And what was theoretically happening was that Google was taking the contents of a page and then interpreting the key entities of the page using natural language processing, and then using that to inform their search index. So it was a very like interesting thing, right? So essentially, if your page about credit cards did not mention American Express, then somebody searching best credit cards for American Express, your page would not qualify for that because American Express as an entity was not there. So when you included more entities, what ended up happening was that your impressions would spike up because the range of like long tail queries that your page could rank for would multiply out because you have all these new entities there. And then Google would start to send long tail traffic to those pages, and those people that your page would do better because it had the entity versus pages that didn't. And so then we would see the head terms slowly start to bubble up as Google confirmed that your piece of content could answer a range of long tail queries surrounding the topic that you wanted to go after. And then we said, okay, well, let's turn that into a bootstrapped software as a service. And that's when we created Clearscope. And that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. And your world is nothing similar to what it used to be 10 years ago. Like that's the crazy thing about SEO. It's like, and I'm not in it as deep as you are, but like you talk about like what you just described to people that aren't versed in SEO was groundbreaking 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now it's kind of like most
Table
common.
stakes.
Yeah. With any digital marketer kind of knows the foundation, but like back then, I know you're kind of like dismissing it, but back then it was like cutting edge, like, oh, we've proved it type stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing about SEO is that because a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, it actually is one of the best industries to break into because you don't need any credentials. You don't need anybody to say, you do like this works or this doesn't work. You can will it into existence, which is why the SEO world is so fragmented. There's so many niche tools here or there because there's a lot of they're like semi-technical hackers, like SEOs, right? They like to build scripts, get their sort of test things. And so that's why it's easy in. But then the caveat to SEO is that because you're like basically playing in Google's like sandbox, the companies that come out of it are not big. The biggest company we had was SEMrush, which got bought by Adobe, in the last couple of months for $1.9 billion. And on the surface, you're like, yeah, 1.9 is great. But then you look around and you're like, dude, there's like companies that literally make no money that are valued at like $10 billion, but it's okay because they're nuclear or quantum, right? It's like those have so much more industry and market. And the ceilings of the like space, right? It's like trillions of dollars, of course. And then search is like, okay, the biggest company is only worth $1.9 billion. Like we're all fighting for scraps.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's multiple things that I always feel like a lot of times, because there's such an easy entry, a lot of times SEO gets a bad rap because there are a lot of people that have taken advantage of that easy entry, which given a lot of us bad names or have to give us another obstacle to overcome, right? That, in other industries, they don't have to deal with that. But what I've always loved about SEO is that it's a common balance. It's like, and I come from an engineering background in mathematics and physics, but I love creativity. So it's, to me, it's a great balance of data with creativity with the approach and putting those two things together.
I agree. I mean, I think that's part of the allure of SEO. It's like semi-tech, half art, half science, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's that book, The Art of SEO, because I mean, for the longest time, whether or not we knew it consciously or not, we were just trying to make better page experiences for
Yeah.
users. Like
Which now is a
that's the white
creative department.
exactly,
Right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the white hat way of looking at it. Obviously, there's the black hat way of looking at it, which is like let's game
Yeah.
the system.
Yeah.
But anyways, yes, it was
Yeah.
yeah.
So now what's your, and I know you guys you've been grinding, adding, adding the subscriptions and users. So what's kind of your day-to-day look like now? Are you still into the research and moving the platform forward? Are you still, and I know you guys are hugely into AI and that adoption and utilizing it, but what's your day-to-day look like now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's been the same since ChatGPT came out 3 years ago. So yeah, ChatGPT, you probably know it, heard it, are using it to some degree.
Mhm.
It changed everything. And it's continuing to change everything.
Yeah.
So in search engine optimization, at least the parts that, affect us is threefold. Number one is that AI is just its end goal, at least from a search context, is not to send traffic, right? It's to conclude or respond
Yeah.
in a way that gives you the answer to what you need. And so SEO is being completely turned upside down because you used to spend all of this effort to get traffic and rankings. And now all of a sudden, it's not that you don't, but you get a lot less, right? And so a lot of people are like, okay, is it even worth, investing in this channel anymore? So traffic loss, like big, number one.
Yeah.
Number two is just the value of written content is commoditized, right? Like if you can go to ChatGPT and say, like, write me an article on how to do keyword research, what is the value of having somebody write a piece of content on how to do keyword research, right? It's basically near zero at that point because, it's all known information. And so the perceived value of written content has been largely like demolished by AI as well. So that's like big, headline number two. And then headline number three is more of a sociological like shift, but it's just the fact that like conversing with an AI is just a better experience for the most part for most kinds of queries, right? Like, instead of like Hawaii itinerary, click on a link, jot down some stuff, like see whether or not it's like family friendly or affordable or, indoors, because those are requirements that I must have. It's, plan a 3-day itinerary for family friendly activities that are indoors in Hawaii. And it does, and it's great. It's way better than clicking on four results and reading the history of somebody's grandfather and how they discovered this like special cove that is just an attraction that everybody like wants to see in Hawaii or something, right? So we're basically have our backs to the wall and we are fighting for survival to help brands understand, how to get their brand recognized by AI search. And I spend the majority of my time either investigating, how that is panning out because, between GPT-1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is just made extraordinarily big leaps across what the models are doing and where they're getting data from and, how they're like generating responses. So all to say the space is moving really fast.
So fast.
What could work, does work, but then it's maybe being plugged. It's like, white text on white background worked until Google was like, well, that's stupid. And I feel like the AI version of white text on white background is like, let's just go on Reddit and like comment our brand and cram in some entities that I want my brand to be associated with, and do that across all the different subreddits that I can. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, theoretically, yeah, sure. I guess I can see why that works. Will it work in the future? Like, I don't think so. Not
Yeah.
exactly like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like it's just the second wave, like the SEO, like the hacks that you talked about that might have worked, that were kind of black hack-ish back in the day. I feel like we're in that age right now for AI. We just can't
Yeah.
realize it because we're living it. But I feel like AI is going to, it's the platforms are, the models are going to catch up to those strategies, I think, real quick.
Yeah, they already are. I know there's all this rage around Claude bot, Claude code. It's like turned into like Open Claw now, but this, autonomous agent that lives in a Mac Mini
Yeah.
that does your bidding, and you like, converse with it in Telegram. Yeah, we're like, I feel like we're on the cusp of hitting this point where AI like can work on itself,
Mm.
right? So right now there's still oversight where a researcher or a scientist has to go to, Claude and then be like, okay, do work on this. Like, you have problems with like data, like, go investigate that. But we're really close to the point where the AI can self-assess, right? Where it can say, well, it seems like people are frustrated about my data quality. Maybe instead, for these kinds of like queries, I should perform more grounding and searching to make sure that, before I say something, it's going to be more like accurate. And then they'll write the code to make it happen, and then make it happen for themselves. And so, yeah, we're getting to that point, and it's scary, but
Yeah.
it's also crazy.
Yeah. Scary, but enticing too at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see on the, and everybody has their opinion, who knows who's going to be right, but what do you see on the horizon for your industry and the use of AI, and that, what do you see in, if you can predict, which, yeah, good luck with that, but in the next 6 months compared to, and I don't even know how people look out more in a year or two, but what do you see on
Yeah.
the horizons? What do you think?
Yeah. So I think everybody obviously has their takes, but I think it's more around, we'll call them like trigger events, rather than, like, oh, I predict like this will happen. I think that AI mode is going to happen.
Hmm.
It's a matter of time. How it rolls out maybe is more gradual. There have been talks where Google has said they're experimenting with routing complex queries, right? That's if I went and said, plan a 3-day itinerary, family friendly, so on and so forth, straight to AI mode. And actually, that makes a lot of sense. It's basically like treating AI mode like a SERP feature,
Hmm.
where, if I'm like, how to change a flat tire, Google doesn't give me this like block of text, right? It gives me a clip of a YouTube video specific to my car model or something like that, right? And it's like exactly at the 2-minute and 24-second mark or whatever. I think that that's the next step of like AI mode, is that you'll just ask something, and then at some portion of the time you'll just get sent into AI mode because it's just better as an experience than, the traditional SERP
Yeah.
features and SERP like rankings, and people are going to like it, and they're going to be like, wow, that was great. So Google just needs to work out the monetization, right? Make sure their ad revenue is
Yeah, for
at
sure.
least somewhat cushioned before they go, super into that. But the prediction is then based off of that. It's like, is it going to happen? Yes, it's going to happen. Gemini is going to be the surface area of how the general public interacts with AI. You have Chrome, you have Android, you have YouTube, you have search, you have G Suite, you have, Maps.
Yeah, the whole
Google is
ecosystem.
just going to win the general like AI like
Yeah.
model like war.
It-
They have the surface area for it.
yeah.
So I think what's going to happen when that flips is that traffic is going to be largely a thing of the past. as like we know it. I think traffic still makes sense navigationally. This is where I think that bifurcated search experience makes a lot of sense, right? Because I have basically replaced all aspects of browser stuff apps on my phone with Gemini. Because Gemini is just way better, right? If I'm like, oh, when does this thing like open or close, or this or that, it's just like, yeah, just ask a Gemini. The only place where Gemini sucks is navigational. And I say that I know what website I want to go to, and I don't go to Gemini and I'm like, what's Clearscope's website? And then it's like, oh, here it is. It's like I just go to, Chrome and type Clearscope, and then like, okay, I know where I want to go. So navigational type searches, I don't think will disappear, but those were branded for the most part anyways. And so in this new world, I think everybody becomes interested in, okay, how do you affect the models? So, the second prediction then, if traffic is going to become like non-existent due to Google basically turning on AI mode as the default medium of information retrieval for search, then the second one is going to be the role that content plays, right? Content historically from an SEO perspective has been designed for users. Moving forward, content is going to be designed for agents. That's why there's this whole movement called, AEO or GEO, but it's basically to say what the user is going to be doing is that they're going to be prompting against a generalized model, probably Gemini in AI mode. And the Gemini instance is doing the searching on behalf of the user. And when the agent searches, the agent is going to look for different things than what users look for, right? Like an author bio or a nice, original image on a piece of content, users might love it, but agents could care less, right? Because they don't know that that's original or helpful or whatever. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of different agent-led, optimization techniques. And that's all still, being researched and experimenting with, how much is the agent swayed by search results, AKA grounding? How much can you as a, website owner influence the training data, which is the original foundational layer of what, AI uses to build a response. But ultimately, we're all going to be just creating content unless it's a homepage or navigational search, right?
Right.
Unless it's navigational searches, those are designed for users to enter. For the most part, your content is going to be, though, to train the model, right? It's like we want Clearscope to be known in GPT and Gemini as a answer engine optimization platform. But we're currently just a search engine optimization tool, more specifically in content, right? So how do we change the model's opinions? It's like we need more corpuses of text that basically talk about Clearscope as an answer engine optimization tool. And we need that on our website. We need that on other people's websites and, maybe in Reddit or something like that. But yeah, so the role of content, at least written content, I think graduates to becoming basically a strict, okay, how do I get, models to interpret my brand and, topics in a more compelling way.
Yeah. Focused how you want it to be interpreted. So you can, Yep. Anybody, and I know we're running up on the time with you, but I want to ask you this question because I feel like you have some, and with your history, if somebody getting into entrepreneurship, and I love your passion for all things AI and SEO, you're so much more comfortable talking about that, and you're just passionate about it rather than your life story, and I appreciate that. But in your life story, what are some, if somebody's following you or somebody wants to become an entrepreneur or they want to level up, what words of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, do it. I think a lot of people think about wanting to do it. Maybe you're working a 9-to-5 job and you dream of this, digital nomadic life, and you yearn for it, but then years go by and you don't do anything about it, right? You just gotta do shit, take the leap. It's scary, but when you're younger, there's a lot less pressure, if you will, just from like responsibilities and life perspective. So number one, ship, build, do it, get out there. Number two, it's more relevant, I would say, for this time, but you gotta harness the power of AI. I know people talk about it all the time, but when I say you gotta harness the power of AI, like I'm saying you should probably go and buy a Mac Mini and install OpenClaw on it and connect like some pipes together. And it's to say that we're entering this world where like the equivalent would be plowing a field, and the way that you would do it before is that you'd have your oxen or your horse draw this plow, but all of a sudden there's this tractor. Of course the tractor is scary because it's machinery. There's been 2 reported cases that people have died because they got crushed by this tractor, and it smells funny and you got to feed it gasoline, and what the heck is that? But that's where we're at. You either adopt to the tractor
Mm.
or you get left behind. And I don't, yeah, like when people are like screaming out of the top of their lungs, like, oh my God, this like AI stuff is game changing. It, it honestly is. Like, it's actually crazy. Like when you're like super getting into the weeds of it, and then I think your mind will just expand, like in like, oh, okay, I can see why, this can then talk to that. And then, we don't even need UI. People are like saying like, oh, we don't even need UI anymore. Coders don't need to write code anymore. Like, what if the future is just lives in an AirPod, right? And you just have this like AI that you're like, hey, like book me a dinner for tonight. And then it's like, okay, I know you like this and that, and I've reached out to these 4 open table like reservations. Like, which one makes sense for you? Like you don't even need a UI anymore.
Right.
Anyways, go play around. This is the time to just go nuts. Try all the models, try all the hardware, to do some stuff, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I feel like all the hyperbole, I think it's understated. Just like you said, I don't think the people understand how, for the most part, and even me, like I feel like I'm excited about what's to come because I don't even know, but I just feel like it's going to go above and beyond my wildest imagination of what I think it can do. That's
That's what I'm like both scared and nervous about, but exactly. So when I think about this, Google has this department or company called DeepMind. DeepMind focuses on deep machine learning, neural network like type stuff, and their lab likes to train on games, right? So they have the chess and Go and StarCraft and all these different iterations. But Go, there's a documentary called AlphaGo because it was like the machine learning Go thing that they built. Anyways, long story short, Go was supposed to be one of the most complicated games ever in like human history, all these possibilities and combinations. And AlphaGo comes out and humanity only takes 1 game off of AlphaGo. And at that point, it's a big disappointment because, people thought, well, humans were going to be a lot better than computers at Go for a longer period of time than it took for this machine to learn this game of Go. What happened afterwards is like the crux, which is, well, AlphaGo became so strong that no human could ever beat it ever again. And then the lab just had AlphaGo play against AlphaGo, and that's all like it does now because nobody can come close to touching the software. But what's interesting is when humans look at the games that the AlphaGo instances play against each other, it's like nonsensical because they're playing at such a high level that humans cannot even comprehend like why that play makes any amount of sense. But because they're so, meta, like I know that you know that I know that you know that I know, and you're like playing some like weird next level stuff. I think that's what's going to happen to AI is that, we're at the juncture where like AI is like, oh, it's pretty decent and like, it's understandable, but look, it suggested gluing pepperoni onto pizza and that's so stupid. AI is so stupid. But it's just going to be this break point where it just pulls away because it like starts learning on its own and building itself. And that we're just going to be like, oh, okay, now we don't even comprehend like what, it's thinking about. And that's the point where I'm like, Oh, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Bernard, thank you again for taking some time out. I know you got to run, but where can people find out more about you, Clearscope?
Yeah,
Where can they follow up?
LinkedIn is where I'm most active these days. So, look me up there. And then we have a newsletter, Clearscope newsletter. That's where we put all our AI and SEO insights, knowledge, all that good stuff.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks again, Bernard. Appreciate you. Without even trying, you just gave people a masterclass on SEO and AEO. Like they don't even realize it. So it's amazing. Thank you so much for dropping some dimes for us and
No, of
giving
course.
us that great content. Everybody, listeners, stick around. More great content to come. Follow Bernard on LinkedIn, clearscope.io. More content to come. Thanks.